Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In episode 243, we previewed the Detroit Lions Week 16 matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll get insights from a reporter who covers the team and provide insights of our own on the matchup. Plus, we're going to discuss the Detroit Lions as a whole right now and our thoughts on the playoff chances for the team. We're going to get to all of that and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is James Williams, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, the former Michigan High School Coach of the Year. He was also named Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's a scouting and training director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, welcome.
Thanks for having me again. I'm glad it's on to the next game.
As it always is. And joining both of us to discuss that next game is the Sports Writer of the Year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. He is the senior writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle, James Cook. James, thanks for joining us. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, the senior writer just means I've been here for a long time. I don't think it necessarily indicates quality.
Okay.
Well, I've read some of your work. I'm gonna give you a check mark for the quality. I think it looks pretty good. But all right. Well, as we get started, we want to let you know our show is brought to you by Roaster Jack Coffee Company in Traverse City, Michigan. They've been doing this since 1999, folks. What have they been doing? Well, roasting premium beans from small farms all around the world. And the only thing better than great coffee is great coffee with a discount. If you visit roasterjack.com and you use the code LIONS, you get 20% off your next shipment. Roaster Jack Coffee Company, be a hero, brew great coffee, and go Lions. All right, guys, as we get started with the show, we got a couple announcements here about some giveaway opportunities. The first is, how would you like to try some Roaster Jack coffee for free? Okay, I mean, it is a holiday season. They've got the holiday blend out, so we are giving away a free bag of coffee from Roaster Jack's special holiday blend. Now, all you got to do is find us on Twitter at NTSOL Podcast. Follow the show, like the tweet that's already up there, retweet it, and then give us a comment with your favorite all-time Detroit Lion. You do all that, Coach, it enters you in for a chance to win a bag of coffee.
Can I win a free bag of coffee? Can I put in on that? Because I'm running. I actually ran out. I got to get some more. That's for sure.
I don't know. The rules, I guess, on who can enter are probably somewhat loose, probably continental United States type thing for shipping purposes, and you're within the state. So I guess, if you want to play, go for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I'd rather have somebody else taste it and fall in love with it like us. Have somebody go, oh my God, those guys are right. This stuff's pretty good. So, of course, you got to have it in a Not the Same Old Lions coffee mug.
I hear it tastes better out of a coffee mug. That's just like this, Coach. I've heard it firsthand from you. So
for sure.
Awesome. Again, folks, we want you to test this out. We want you to have some. So either order with that discount, 20% off with Lions, or enter the contest to win. All right, so that's the first giveaway we got going on. The second big news is something we've been promoting already. Billy Sims, right? He still ranks number 2 all times for rushing, you guys, for the Detroit Lions, which is pretty incredible. And he's going to be at his restaurant in Troy, Michigan, Billy Sims Barbecue, this weekend. He'll be there on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 5 and then 11 to 3. And again, the Lions game on Sunday is at 4:25, so you can easily get there early. He'll be signing personal items. He'll have limited merchandise as well. Also, you get a free autographed photo with a meal purchase. So that's pretty cool. We have a graphic up on the screen. It's going to show, if you're watching the video side of it, all the details on there. We have it on our socials as well. We're going to be there on Sunday before the Lions game. So we'd love it if you stop by, say hello, grab a meal. We'll have some podcast stickers as well. But then here's another extra part. We have a special offer for our listeners. You can get one personal item autographed by Billy for free if you use our promo code. And the promo code's pretty easy to remember, especially if you're a regular listener. It's simply Not the Same Old Lions Podcast, the name of the show. Just tell them about the promo code when you're there. You get one personal item autograph for free. That's on top of all the other great things going on there. We hope to see you guys this weekend.
That's a pretty good deal. You can get the photo and something else autographed.
Yeah.
And they got a special on the food too. If you want to get one of their sandwiches, we got a great deal on that too. So
Hmm. It's pretty interesting that Billy Sims is still number two. I wonder how close Jahmyr Gibbs is to opening up his own barbecue joint, seeing that he's probably at his tail for number two rushing all time.
I think Jahmyr Gibbs is around number 6 right now, but at about a year and a half's worth of carries, he will be
Hmm.
competing for the number 2 spot. It's going to get close quick because Billy's just 1 yard in front of the number 3 guy on the list. So, okay. Major storylines, more reactions from last week. James, you want to get us started with something?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but did you guys see the video of the Rams coaches box
Yeah.
when they announced the replay review of the Colby Parkinson touchdown,
Mhm.
and they were as surprised as anybody that that stood, which should tell you quite a bit. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
The NFL hasn't said anything about it. Instead, apparently, they're more concerned about the Lions' booger flicking
Mhm.
celebration, which they were wearing gaiters too in the game too. So it's like even less or more innocuous, I guess. But that's apparently the thing the NFL is concentrating on, not getting its replays right.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
they
Did
should.
St. Brown say what the inspiration was for that? How they came up with that?
I didn't hear. I saw one, of Jamison Williams doing it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's pretty innocuous. I mean, they pretty much just do that and then go into the pointing for a first down
Yeah.
type thing. So it seems pretty harmless, and I don't know why the NFL would really care, but apparently they care more about that than getting things right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what is getting things right? All right. Are the Lions getting things right? That's one thing a lot of people have been wondering for about 6 weeks now, right? Because a win, then a loss, a win, then a loss. So, what do we make of this Lions team that sits 8-6, right? They have a winning record in December, but coming off a 15-2 season, a lot of people expected a record to be better, right? They lost to the Rams. That wasn't unexpected, you guys, but they had a great first half. And then that changed things, right? That first half looked so good. Uh, but let's remember, they've also put up more points against the Rams than any other team did this year. Unfortunately, the Lions did not play the complete game, the complementary game all the way around. And so they are not in the playoffs yet. They do have the best scoring offense in the NFL. Now, we've said for weeks there's a caveat to that, right? So, what do we make of this team, guys? Right? There's 6 losses. As we've mentioned, they haven't really been blown out in any of them. They've had 1 or 2 games that have become 2-score losses. But in general, they've been losing to quality teams and close games. And they've got a pretty good strength of schedule. So, Coach, what are you making of this Lions team right now?
It's just like, Campbell says week in and week out when they lose, it's, a play here, a play there. Last week, specialty teams didn't do well. We missed a field goal. Foxy put, one of the punts into the back of the end zone. Those are things he had another like 40-yard, 50, short punt. And again, then the defense, gives up all those passing yards and, the offense is scoring points. And we just can't, we're not catching any breaks. And, I mean, Meek's got a broken hand or thumb or something because he tried to punch a ball out. So it's not like the effort's not there, but it's just, complimentary football as we talk about week in and week out, and we're just not reaching it. One of the biggest things I saw, Gibbs has 0 touchdowns in our 6 losses. Gibbs has scored touchdowns in our 8 wins. And, those are things that, people are gearing up to stop him because they don't want to end up on a highlight reel, or they don't want to end up on social media of getting your ankles broken open field. And we just have to figure out how to break through that. Again, play last week, we hit the one with JMO. It's a different game. We don't get the holding call. It's a different game. There's just a ton of things. I forgot about Sewell had a holding call on a big run too. The DB came into him, and he's such a massive human being that the DB kind of just ran into his shoulder. So that's what I make of it. I just make of constant misses here or there. by inches or by plays is the difference between, 6 losses and 3 or 4 more wins, maybe. So we'll see this week. And again, they're we're going to bounce back, and, we have to stack them, and we can't stack anything until we get one. So.
No, we can't. And I do think, again, the story's not written yet, right? The season's not over. There's still 3 more games to finish writing this story, and then some potentially, right? So again, we're in the middle of the story. It's still a work in progress. Coach, I go back to something that you said in our last episode, and I think the biggest thing that's hurting the team right now is probably the loss of Frank Ragnow.
Yep.
I think the offensive line, we've seen it in multiple games. We saw it in the Rams game where at one point they were just running like they didn't know where they were going a couple times on some run plays. And when that's going on, the running back is not likely to have success. If we're looking at things, guys, this team, every year is a different team. I know Coach is going to tell us that, James, and we'll get to some of his insights here. But this year's team is more like the 2023 team than the 2024 team. If you're looking at stats, our offense is number 1 in points, number 4 in yards, which is very similar to last year. But the defense is currently 23rd in points allowed, 21st in yards allowed, which is very similar to the 2023 team. And that's for a variety of reasons. A lot of it is, our secondary coach talked about that as well. We've got backups. We've got backups to backups in there in some spots. And so what are you making out of the Lions team right now at 8-6 and what you've seen from them this season?
Yeah, well, about the defense, Aleem McNeil does not seem to be his old self yet. I think he still hasn't completely gotten back from that torn ACL and isn't 100%. He's not in there just wreaking havoc like he normally does. He's still been solid, but he hasn't been what we expect out of Aleem McNeil. DJ Reader, has kind of regressed a little bit. He's just, a year older. Barnes, I guess, kind of at this point in the contract or this point in the year hasn't really lived up to that contract quite yet, but he hasn't been a big hole or anything like that in the defense either. Reed has not come back to his pre-injury form, which kind of reminds me of like Cam Sutton a couple years ago. And he was good the first 3 or 4 games of the year, then he hurts his foot and then never really rebounds from that. DJ Reed seems to be kind of the same thing. And then Tyleek looks like a rookie at times. So the defensive backfield has been decimated by injuries. So I don't know why we're expecting this defense to be a top 10 defense with all those factors. Mm-hmm. But on the positives in the defense, Al-Quadin Muhammad and Roy Lopez have been steals. Jack Campbell has turned into a top 10 legit linebacker in the NFL. They're getting good production from depth players like Rock Ya-Sin, Avonte Maddox, Thomas Harper, Daniel Thomas, Trevor Nowaski. So there's positives there too. And if you look in the offense, there's same thing. There's positives, there's negatives. Yeah. The offensive line is disjointed at times. But like you said, Ragnow plays a big role in that. Early in the season, you had the Amon-Ra St. Brown drops. Thankfully, that has not been a factor the last few weeks, so that's good. You've got Khalif and Vaki have been constantly banged up all season, so those were 2 maybe Swiss Army knife alternate options that you could have thrown there in the offense that really haven't been available. Losing Laporta and Wright really restricted things, and then they haven't really integrated Isaac Taslaw into the offense very well, or very much, I would say. So, but the positive on the offense is that pretty much everybody's back next year on this offense, aside from maybe if Decker or Glasnow retire or otherwise let go, or the injuries to Laporta or Wright are a little more career threatening than they seem now or something. But other than that, you got this entire offense is back next year. So you're going to score points. It's a matter of fixing the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll stay in with this year for right now. I went a little deeper on some stuff because we see the 8-6 record. And I know that's probably the most important stat of all the stats out there, right? Coaches, do you have enough wins to get into the playoffs? And And we talked about the strength of schedule coming into the season. Well, some of the teams they were playing didn't quite live up to what they were supposed to be. But according to ESPN, their strength of schedule is still number 6. Okay. But that doesn't tell the whole story. I went to ESPN's FPI, their football power index, and that measures a team's true strength on net point scale, expected point margin versus average opponent on a neutral field. Who do you think number 1 is on the power index, you guys?
We are.
No, not quite.
Oh, you mean defense? Off, yeah.
No, overall, the whole team. Who's number 1?
Rams.
The Rams. The Rams are number 1.
Yeah.
But you guys, we are number 2 on that index. All right. We're ahead of the Packers, the Seahawks, the Eagles, the Texans, the Bills, Ravens. The Broncos and the 49ers are 9th and 10th. And the Broncos' strength of schedule is 27th.
Right.
Okay. So again, I know 8-6 doesn't look glamorous because you came off a 15-2 season and a 12-5. Well, if they win their last 3, they finish 11-6, which is only 1 game off of where I thought they would finish this year. And they're doing it with all those things that James just talked about. I mean, again, you have the backup to the backup to the backup in its safety. You have the backup defensive back in. We had the Legion of Whom earlier this year. I'm not making excuses. It's been up and down, but the team has actually done pretty well. Now, again, that offensive line has been our issue, that most of our yards come on explosives, not constant 4 to 5 yard gains. But Coach, does that football index thing tell you a little bit more about this team beyond just the 8-6 record that you've already seen when your film breakdowns?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I broke down the Rams game, of course, and for instance, we're half a second, 2-3 inches away from knocking a ball down or getting pressure on. You look at some of the passes last week. Davenport had a ton of reps. Everybody's like, Davenport isn't doing anything. I'm gonna tell you, watch him, man. He collapses that pocket. He had a couple, 2 or 3 big plays, but the problem is we're not making those huge splash plays that the normal fan wants to see and go, oh my God, now we're doing well. We talk about Hutch. People will say Hutch is the only one on the D line that's doing anything. Well, Hutch doesn't even lead the team in sacks. Muhammad does, and McNeil too. Yeah, he's not to his old self, but he's also bouncing around on the defensive line, and they're working a bunch of different packages, trying to put this group together and figure out what their best system is. One of the best ones they saw the other day, they had Nowoski was on there, I think, with Barnes and somebody else as a front and a deep drop. And they're doing a bunch of package things. The big thing with the defense now is trying to these different packages that they're putting in. Can they stop the rush with the light box? And can they put the right personnel? And our team's adjusting by what our personnel is. So I think in the next couple, probably this week for one, I think you'll see some limited roles in some people, and some people getting some more roles and more reps. And I think those guys, snap counts, those guys that get the higher snap counts are the ones that are producing at a higher rate that people aren't seeing. So, but yeah, we've had a lot go against us. And again, we're never going to complain about injuries because that's not what we do. But some complimentary football this Sunday, hopefully.
Yeah, and again, they're still in it. They're not out of it yet.
No.
And you're right. They had been close to making those plays, but close doesn't get the job done, and that's what's going to have to change. Now, we know there's 3 weeks left. The Bears are in first at 10-4. They play the Packers, 49ers, and then Lions. Packers play Bears, Ravens, Vikings. Lions, they have the Steelers, the Vikings, the Bears, and then the Vikings are in fourth with Giants, Lions, and Packers. James, we know that the easiest path is the Bears lose to the Packers this week, and then the Lions win out and they're in the playoffs. That's the easiest path. And another option, easy or not as easy, would be if the Bears beat the Packers this week, then you need the Packers to lose one more game, either against the Ravens or the Vikings, or you need the Bears to lose against San Francisco and then against the Lions, that final game. There are some other scenarios as well, but those are the two most likely in the division, because the NFC West, I mean, San Francisco's at 10-4. They are not looking like they're gonna miss the playoffs. They could, but it's looking like it's going to be one of the NFC North teams that is left out there, from my perception. What are you looking at with the playoff picture, and what are your thoughts on the Lions' chances?
I think it's pretty solid. If they win out, they need the Bears to lose to either the Packers or the 49ers, like you said. And both of those games are very losable games for the Bears. The San Fran is on the road too, for them. So, and then they got the Packers on Saturday night. So the Lions will even know before they play on Sunday whether the Bears or Packers have lost on Saturday night too. So the path is pretty well defined. But the first step is win out. If you don't win out, nothing else really matters. If you don't win out, you got to have a million things fall right.
And before
So
you can win out, coach would tell you got to beat Pittsburgh. I got to get his voice in there a minute.
you got to be 1-0 three times.
Yeah, but you're exactly right, James. If that doesn't happen, then it does get convoluted, and we're not even going down that path. But do you like the Lions' chances, James?
I think it's pretty solid. I mean, I think that they're pretty good favorites here in the Steelers game. I like the matchup for the Lions. We'll get more into that later. Obviously, I think the Lions against the Vikings, they're going to have revenge on their mind for that game that they let slip away earlier in the season that they shouldn't have. And then with everything on the line against the Bears, I like the Lions in that situation too. So, and a revenge game against their old offensive coordinator. End of the season, we saw what happened kind of like that last year with the Vikings when they had to win or go home kind of thing for the division. And the Lions just put their foot to the gas and just blew the Vikings out of the water.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to take a defeatist perception on this, but I'm being appreciative for where the Lions are at. I know it would be nice if they hadn't lost that game to Minnesota earlier and they were 9-5 right now, but they're playing meaningful football in December. They have a winning record in December. They have a shot at the playoffs in December. Kansas City does not have that shot this year, you guys. Right? Look at Washington, who was in the NFC Championship game last year, and look at their record this year. So, again, I'm not going to explain it all the way. The Lions haven't met what we hoped would happen. A variety of things take place. That being said, they're still in it. They still have a chance. So, all right, let's get moving forward. Some transactions hit, James. Let's hit on those, and then let's talk about the injury report, which was an estimated one due to walkthrough.
Yeah, the transactions is pretty short. The Tennessee Titans signed Eric Hallett off the Lions practice squad, and in reaction to that, the Lions signed cornerback Keenan Garber to their practice squad. He's a 6-foot corner, so he's got good size. 6 foot 185. Has some experience in the NFL playing for the Vikings and Colts. 25 years old, so they're hoping that they found a little diamond in the rough, that one of those change of scenery things helps. But so not a whole lot there in the transactions. The injury
before
report.
You get to the injury report, though, I want coaches weigh in on Eric Hallett a minute. That's a name a lot of Lions fans are familiar with. And Coach, I mean, he's had some game action. He's been around for a while, and he got taken off the Lions practice squad. Does that surprise you? But the Lions also made a move on waivers recently that you kind of talked about with me with Jalen Mills, who's a safety. What's some of your insight on that?
I think it's more of somebody who's been in the action more, who's got more worn off tread on the tires, or whatever way you want to look at it. I think Hallett, I'm not sure if he played poorly enough in the last game that they just said, you know what, he's another project. Would have been nice to keep him. We've done a pretty good job of elevating and then putting back in practice squad and sliding them through. And this one we just didn't slide through. It kind of reminds me of Trevor Nowaski a couple of years ago. Was it 2 years ago now, right? Where the Cardinals took him probably around this time of year, actually the second to last game, and now we lost him. So it's a good. My thing about it is if we lost him, then we felt pretty good about the guys that we had signed to fill in for him. And it also, knock on wood, tells, it doesn't tell me, but I'm hopeful that Kirby's going to be able to play. We know that Harper will be back, and Maddox is playing lights out right now. And again, another veteran he's been in the dance, he's been in the big game. So, so I feel comfortable with it. I'd feel a lot more comfortable with BB and Kirby back there, but they're gonna make it work.
Yeah, Coach, I think what you said that hit the most to me is Eric Halla is still on the rise, and the
Yes,
Lions are not in a position for
right.
that right now. They have 3 weeks left to win football games,
Yep.
and you're bringing in a guy who's got NFL experience, who's got
Mhm.
Super Bowl experience,
Mhm.
and even though he's got to learn the system a little bit more, he might be in the spot where he can contribute in an area that the Lions need now, not going forward,
Right.
or eventually. So, okay, James, to that injury report.
Yeah, they only had two guys who did not practice today, and that was Taylor Decker and Kirby Joseph. But interestingly, they still have not put Kirby Joseph on injured reserve, so that gives you hope that he's going to be able to play at some point the rest of the season. Limited guys is Tristan Colon, Giovanni Manu, who is back at practice. So that's an interesting one. So they must have started his clock off of IR. Amik Robertson with that hand injury that coach mentioned, Sion Vake with a thumb, and then full practice was Coyote Awashika, Thomas Harper coming off the concussion, and Christian Mahogany, which is also good if they can get him back here in the next week or so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dan said that they're going to know a lot more on Thursday or Friday about Mahogany. It was really funny, Coach. And the thing is, like, yeah, he was a full practice in our simulated walkthrough or
Walkthrough.
something like that.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, I
but
love
but the
that. I
hope
love it.
is if you can get Mahogany back soon, but also
Mhm.
Thomas Harper, I think that's one that would you feel a lot better in the
Mhm.
secondary if Harper's back there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a big one for us. I mean, that especially because I think Maddox could be that BB type guy for us. Where Harper can play the true safety position because he's like Kirby's back, and if Kirby's back, then we're sitting in pretty good shape. So we'll be able to
Yeah.
scheme some things. So
All right. Still early in the week, James, but did anything jump out to you about the Pittsburgh Steelers injury report?
Well, I mean, the interesting one is TJ Watt. Obviously, coming off that missing the game last week with a partially collapsed lung that had to have some surgery done on it. So, whether he plays or not, we'll see. But that changes your game plan if he's able to play because I mean, he's not having the season that I think people expected him to have. I think he's only got 7.5 sacks. Um, but he's still a player to be reckoned with, and so is Nick Herbig, who was a player who also did not participate in practice, along with one of their guards in a corner. And then they had a bunch of guys, that were limited.
yeah, Herbert got hurt last game, I think, and so did Isaac. And so I think they've sustained their injuries last game, so they were held out because of course, they must not have finished it. So those will be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, Herbig's been big for them at the
Yeah.
linebacking core, him and the TJ Watt. That'll be real
Mhm.
interesting to see
Mhm.
what their linebacking core looks like. So,
Mhm.
all right, well, let's turn to the game at hand then, okay? And to do that, here is my interview with Jenna Harner, sports anchor and reporter out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Here's that interview, folks. Joining me today is Jenna Harner, sports anchor and reporter at WPXI, the NBC affiliate out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Jenna, thank you for taking the time to talk Lions and Steelers football with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here. This is going to be a fun game this weekend for sure. We're excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the matchup. I think a lot of people have been anticipating in Detroit ever since Aaron Rodgers became a part of Pittsburgh. So let's talk about the Steelers. They've only had 3 coaches in their franchise history. They've had like one losing season in the past 2 decades plus. It's another year, but yet another fight for first place in the division still on the line. The Steelers sit at 8-6. I mean, they have a winning record right now, but a lot's different this year. Well documented, Aaron Rodgers is in at quarterback. A swapping of wide receivers with George Pickens leaving, DK Metcalf arriving. So let's just start with a general overview of the team where, in the final quarter of the season. Tell me a little bit about it and how it compares to previous seasons.
Yeah, this has been a very, very interesting year, especially the way the Steelers started this season because they came out kind of hot. I mean, this is a team that has kind of been in quarterback purgatory, at least this is my sixth season now covering them. So they've been in this who is the quarterback? They went through the final era of Big Ben when he really, his career came to an end. Then it was Mitch Trubisky. Then it was, hey, maybe Kenny Pickett's the answer. He was not the answer. And now we're sitting here with Aaron Rodgers, who coming into the year, he was the massive question mark. It was going to be, okay, what are the Steelers going to get out of a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers who, came off that Achilles surgery. And, of course, he had that year afterwards with the Jets. But, in an era in New York where he didn't really play well, like what were they going to get? And they thought this defense was going to be such a bright spot. Turns out that the defense has had a lot of inconsistencies, and everybody in Pittsburgh has kind of been laughing because this was a defense at the start of the season that was using words like historic and potentially one of the best ever. And that has not been the case for this team. And Aaron Rodgers has played well for the majority of the season, minus the week 10 to week 13 stretch where the Steelers were kind of on a little bit of that skid there. But Aaron Rodgers, especially in these last two games, has played some of the best football he's played with this team. And that's something they're absolutely going to need him to do down the stretch here. Receivers have been incredibly interesting on this team because coming into the year, it was okay. You knew it was going to be DK Metcalf and then the drop off to everybody else. But they expected a lot out of Roman Wilson, who was in his second season. He's been a healthy scratch the last two games. Calvin Austin III is a speedster, but he really just hasn't shown a lot of the potential I think they saw from him. And the Steelers, I'm sure as you've seen, love using their tight ends. And Arthur Smith, I think if he could make his dream offense, it would be an offense full of tight ends. And they have a lot of different guys that have been used very differently and have a lot of different versatility to them and play different roles within this offense in that tight end room. But this has been a fascinating year for this team. But they finally, for the first time since weeks 3, 4, and 6, the bye week for the Steelers was week 5, won back-to-back games in winning the Monday night game against Miami most recently, and then the week before against the Ravens. So it's just been kind of this up and down year. And up until the Miami game, they hadn't really put together that complete game that we've seen from them. And yes, Miami had some garbage time points, and the Steelers defense in the locker room was talking about that after the game as, hey, we were really frustrated by giving up those scores. But looking at that game as a whole, this is kind of the best spot that they've been in coming into a game in it felt like, I mean, it's been over 2 months that they've won back-to-back games, which has been crazy.
Well, I think the Lions can relate to the lack of winning back-to-back games. I think it's 6 or so in a row where it's gone every other. But let's stay on that passing game for a minute because you're right. After DK Metcalf, there is kind of a drop-off, but there's 7 different players on this team with 20 or more receptions. And the 3 guys right after DK Metcalf are 2 tight ends and a running back. And so is that spreading the ball around out of necessity because there isn't somebody that stepped up to be a strong number 2? Or is it that, you know what, they're just finding different guys to get open and it's just a scheme that's working for them with the personnel they have?
Yeah, it's kind of been a combination of both, and it's been really interesting to see kind of game to game how it's changed because, Kenneth Gainwell had at one point yesterday in the game, he was the leading running back and receiver for the team until DK Metcalf had a couple big plays. But he has been such a weapon for this team, and they've struggled in getting the run game going. Again, back to that consistency point, this has been a team that has really struggled finding that consistency in that area. But Gainwell has been able to create so much after the catch. And that's been kind of a signature hallmark of what this team has done this season because they really didn't have any crazy games where they had multiple downfield passes of 20 plus yards or more, those explosive plays, those deep shots until that Baltimore game 2 weeks ago. But a lot of this offense has been kind of dink and dunk and just getting it to guys who can create in space after the catch. That's what DK Metcalf, of course, has done so well. Kenneth Gainwell's done that so well. Johnny Smith has made some big plays in that area. A lot of people here in Pittsburgh have been really frustrated with the usage of tight end Pat Freiermuth because he's kind of that zone beater, and you saw a little bit of that in some of the big plays he made against Miami Monday night. but it's really just kind of been whoever's been there, whoever's been available. And then, of course, the Steelers a couple weeks ago went out and, acquired Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who scores his first touchdown. And we were joking yesterday, Monday night, hey, it's party like it's 2018 again. Him and Aaron Rodgers are connecting in a game with single-digit wind chills. So we're in Green Bay. And then Adam Thielen, too. That one kind of was a very interesting surprise veteran addition. But that's been something, too, Mike Tomlin has really talked about, is just the addition of these veteran guys in that receiving room. Because this has been, I know sometimes you use the phrase leadership and it feels very cliched, but this has been an offense that really has kind of been devoid of that true leader in my time here, because it's been so young and so much of the Steelers' money has been spent on the defensive side of the ball. I think the veteran presence of Rodgers, and now, you have Thielen, Marco Valdes-Scantling, DK is, a veteran in his own way. Even though I still think he's young, but these guys, having that has been a massive asset to this offense. And I think that's going to be very crucial as they look to kind of make this push down the stretch here, because they sit one game ahead of the Ravens, and every game in these final three of the regular season is going to be incredibly crucial if they want to, not only have the chance at hosting a playoff game, but winning their first playoff game in nearly a decade.
Yeah, that's a surprise when you know that they've got a winning record for so long, but that lack of a playoff win might surprise some people outside of Pittsburgh. Another element with that offense, though, is the running game. It's nothing that catches your eye, I don't think. Doesn't make a lot of stats. But you've got Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. Combined, they're over 1,000 yards, and they are averaging 4 yards and I think 4.5 or so a carry. So they are productive. Can you tell me a little bit about that run game? Is it a consistent thing with the offensive line, or how's that working with the offense?
Yeah, it has been really up and down, and there's been flashes. There's been moments where you see what it can be capable of. And there were some big plays just, again, Monday night, because it's so top of the brain at this point, but there were some plays. Kenneth Gainwell had that big 38-yard run that set up an eventual touchdown in the second half. There have been these big plays. I just don't think they've been coming in the bunches in the ways that the Steelers have wanted to be able to, find that consistency where they can say, hey, we are going to just grind this one out and run the football down the field and march down the field. This is also a very young offensive line. 3 of their starters are all in their second years. And for Troy Fautanu, who missed most of the majority of last season with multiple injuries, getting those 3 guys, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Troy Fautanu back has been just a massive asset. They have had some injuries that they've had to deal with, and they've been kind of rotating guys in and out. They run a lot of the jumbo package, and that's been really fun to see. Spencer Anderson comes in as the, eligible. The guy reporting is eligible. And then Darnell Washington, he's such a unique weapon as a massive tight end that is listed as 265. The man is not 265. The man is more like 311. But he has just been such a weapon for them too, in both the passing game and the blocking game. But yeah, this run game just hasn't been able to, again, there's those flashes, but it hasn't been able to put that entire performance together. I do think it was great to see a little bit of them being able to get going against Miami. But again, Aaron Rodgers was doing a lot more passing and just getting those quick passes, whether they were behind the line of scrimmage, right at the line of scrimmage, getting them out of his hands as quickly as possible. It hasn't been what the Steelers envisioned it to be at the start of the year. And that's a big identity and a hallmark of what Arthur Smith wants to do with this offense. And both Warren and Gainwell, again, when they make plays, they are phenomenal playmakers. Jaylen Warren can be so elusive. Kenneth Gainwell has that shiftiness to him. And again, there's such a small sample size, but you think that there's been some progress, and I'm going to look for it to continue down the stretch here, and they're going to need it to, as we're, it's going to be nice this weekend, obviously, because it's in a dome, but these last 2 games against Cleveland and Baltimore are going to be cold ones that feel like rock fights coming.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that insight on that offensive line and whatnot, because the Lions fans can relate. We know what it's like to have that extra guy in there on the offensive line. And as far as, Darnell Washington, I remember him coming out of Georgia and his unique size. And I was like, man, I would love it if the Lions drafted him. So that'll be fun to watch him play over there. I have not seen much of his game, but I do know that size you're talking about, and that does make him very unique. Let's switch over to defense. Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, they're leading the way with the sacks. But like you already alluded to, coming into this season, it was this defense is loaded. You brought it up. There were historic comments being brought about them or comparisons. Now, they're giving up a lot of yards. They're about a bottom third of the league when it comes to yards. That being said, as far as points go, they've stiffened it up a little bit at the goal line or whatnot, and they're probably more middle of the pack when that's going on. So tell me, what's working and what's not working on the defense?
Yeah, they've steadied the ship a little bit, and a big massive injury that the Steelers had to deal with, unfortunately, was when Deshaun Elliott went down. He was a guy that was such a heart and soul of this defense and what they did. So he goes down at safety. Luckily, Jalen Ramsey and his positional flexibility has been just a massive bright spot. So they shift Ramsey from the nickel over to safety, and he's kind of been locking things down there on the back end. Joey Porter Jr. has, he gets a lot of attention here in Pittsburgh as the cornerback because, there will be a lot of penalties, and it tends to happen against the Bengals more than any other team, I feel like, but there are some big penalties that he plays a big role in, but when he's been asked to be locked down, he has been very locked down. Of course, the touchdown that was or wasn't a touchdown, depending on who you ask, for Isaiah Likely against the Ravens a couple weeks ago. Yeah. To me, the way the rule is written, it's the way the rule's written. But, and when you see that, you're like, all right, that's a touchdown, but, letter of the law. So he's been, he challenged himself at the start of the season to get better this year. And I think that while he has taken some, costly penalties, I think largely he has had a really solid season. But Darius Slay, a guy that they thought was going to be a big answer, ends up getting cut and ends up getting sent out of Pittsburgh, and it just wasn't a fit. Unfortunately, it just kind of James Pierre has been playing really well. He missed last game with a calf injury, but we'll kind of see how his status progresses throughout the week. There's a chance he could be back, and this is a defense that thrives on takeaways. So if they're not getting the turnovers, if they're not getting the takeaways, those are some of the games where they've been giving up 30, the big point totals that we've seen from some of the teams. Like, I have to go back and check because I feel like every week at this point is just mush in my brain. But 26 points against the Bills, 31 points against the Bears, 25 points against the Chargers. Those were some games where the Steelers weren't getting takeaways the way that they were against teams like the New England Patriots, who I still kind of look at that and say, how did the Steelers beat this team in week 3? Looking at what they've done now, all this rambling here to say that the secondary has kind of settled in a little bit. And the defensive front has been playing really well. Rookie Derek Harmon has just been phenomenal for this team. He's missed the last 3 games. Mike Tomlin told us on Tuesday that, he probably could have gone Monday night against the Dolphins, but with him being a rookie, he wants him to get more practice reps. Him being back is going to play a crucial role, especially against a Lions team that runs the ball as well as they do, because his numbers are a little bit skewed because he was out for the Bills game, and that was one of the worst rushing performances the Steelers defense allowed all season. But when Derek Harmon is in the lineup, the Steelers allow 100 fewer rushing yards than when he is out of the lineup. And I think that's going to be a massive factor this week against the Lions.
All right, that's an incredible change right there. So I can see why Pittsburgh's really wanting to get him back in, and that's something the Lions are going to have to be aware of and focus on, I'm sure. Well, let's break it down here, nuts and bolts. If Pittsburgh's going to win this game, both teams are 8-6. What's got to happen for the Steelers to get out of Ford Field with a victory?
I think consistency, and that's kind of, I know it's such a broad term, but that to me is going to be, can this team be consistent and build off these last 2 performances? Can they shut down or limit, because I don't really think you're shutting down this Lions run game with the 1-2 punch that they have, but can they limit Gibbs and Montgomery as much as they can, and just, be able to build off of what they did against Miami? They allowed 63 rush yards against a Dolphins team that had that came into that game on their 4-game winning streak, averaging nearly 200 rush yards a game. And the Steelers did so without Derek Harmon and without TJ Watt. I would be very surprised if Watt plays this week, just given what he dealt with last week with the collapsed lung, and the recovery time that usually it takes to come back from that. Granted, like Aaron Rodgers said when I asked him about it, he wouldn't bet against anybody in the Watt family to return as quickly as, or to not be able to return as quickly as possible. So keeping an eye on that there. But the Steelers are going to need to limit the run as much as possible. And the offense is going to need to continue to play the way that they played these last 2 games. They need to, sustain drives and win time of possession. Yesterday was, I believe, the first game the Steelers won the time of possession battle, however you want to call it, by more than, I think it was 3 minutes. They were bottoms of the league in terms of time of possession, and they really were able to handle the Dolphins really well in that situation. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Lions do win this game. I think the Steelers will keep it close, but they have to stop the run, and this offense needs to continue to be able to sustain drives and not go 3 and out in ways, in ways that we've seen them do so in the midst of that skid where they lost 3 of 4.
All right. Well, if the Lions are in fact going to pull off a victory in this one, as you think will happen, the Steelers are on a 2-game winning streak. They're fighting for a division title. What does Detroit have to do to win this game?
I think they have to expose the Steelers defensively, and I think that they are going to have to be able to run the ball really well. I also don't love the matchup for the Steelers offense against the defense that the Lions pose, and they're going to challenge the Steelers. Hey, try to throw the ball deep. And can they do it? Again, we saw in Baltimore, they were really able to, but to me, that's going to be a massive factor here in this game is, are they going to be able to get after Aaron Rodgers? If Rodgers doesn't get the ball out of his hands quickly and they can bring pressure, which again, Aiden Hutchinson is who he is for a reason. Mike Tomlin calling him a game wrecker. That's one of the highest honors a player can get from head coach Mike Tomlin when he talks about that in his Tuesday press conference. I think if they get after Rodgers and they get after this offensive line, that can be a really long day because Rodgers, if he's not getting the ball out of his hands quickly, he's taken some bad sacks this year. He took a couple in the first half against Miami, and luckily those weren't incredibly costly given the moment of the game, but there's a very likely chance they can do that. I think also if the Lions defense forces the Steelers offense into turning over the ball, that is going to play very crucial. And usually, again, teams, I know it's obvious, teams that win the turnover battle usually tend to win the game. But the Steelers offense has not turned the ball over the last 2 games. And I think that's been another big part of what they've been doing well in this, again, it's such a small sample size, but in this 2-game stretch. So if the Lions can force some turnovers, if they can force Aaron Rodgers to hold onto the ball, and if they can get after the Steelers run game and shoot the gaps and find ways to expose the Steelers defensive front, I think that could be a massive key to success for this Detroit team.
Awesome. Those are some great insights. Is there anything that you haven't said that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share about the upcoming game or about the Steelers?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. It's you know how it is. It's so funny and everything is so week to week in the NFL. But 2 weeks ago, fans here in Pittsburgh are chanting incredibly loudly, "Fire Tomlin, fire Mike Tomlin." It's echoing through the stadium as they're just getting demolished by the Bills and Renegade. I don't know if you know of the Renegade tradition, but when the Steelers are looking for a big defensive stop, they'll play the song Renegade by Styx. That's when all those scenic shots of everybody twirling the towels at Acrisure Stadium are going nuts and going crazy. Fans booed Renegade in the Bills game. And that was 3 weeks ago. And I've never seen that in my 6 years covering this team. And a lot of other reporters that have been here a lot longer than me were saying, yeah, I've never seen them boo Renegade. And all of a sudden, winning cures a whole lot. So this game will be very interesting. The Steelers, if they're going to look to lock up the division, there's a chance they could do so if they win this game and the Ravens lose their next two, which is crazy to think about. But
Right.
um, yeah, it's crazy how much, winning changes things in the National Football League. Everybody's much happier here these last two, I should say Monday and Tuesday mornings, than the previous couple.
That makes a lot of sense. Jenna, thank you so much. Those are some great insights. Appreciate you making the time and talking Lions Steelers football with me.
Thank you so much for having me. Really looking forward to coming to Detroit. This will be my first time there this weekend, so really looking forward to being in the Motor City.
Awesome. It's a great stadium. It's going to be a lot of fun there. I expect the atmosphere to be exciting. I can't wait to get your feedback on what the atmosphere is since it's your first time there.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it.
That was great information from Jenna. Big thank you to her for taking the time to do the interview. Guys, she had an unbelievably busy day. She's only one person in the sports department that day. And on top of that, NBC News was in town doing a story on Aaron Rodgers, and Jenna still made time to talk to me to preview the Lions and the Steelers game. Quite the professional. Big thank you to her for that. Some awesome insights there. So, James, let's piggyback off on some of the things that she talked about. Steelers are a good team this year. I mean, under Mike Tomlin, they seem to be, well, they are a winning team every year for like 20 some years. A lot of changes, though. We talked about they got a new quarterback in town, which is like the third year or so in a row they've done that. They've got DK Metcalf instead of George Pickens. I almost said Carl. And then they've got a lot of tight ends, and coaches are really going to go into that one. I can't wait. But, James, what do we make about the Steelers team so far from your perspective?
Well, I think that this is a great matchup for Detroit because the Steelers' weakness on offense plays into the Lions' weakness on defense. Aaron Rodgers just does not throw the ball deep anymore. Last year he had a career low 6.8 yards average depth of target, which was second to worst or second to lowest among starting quarterbacks in the league. Nearly 70% of his pass attempts were less than 10 yards downfield, and his ADOT is even lower this year at 5.5 yards. So he's throwing it even shorter. It's all just short passes. He has only won 300-yard passing game in the last 4 seasons.
Wow.
That is a surprising statistic. I mean,
Well,
obviously he missed one season.
Jets. Yeah.
He missed one season with the Jets where he had the Achilles and everything. But still, that's a season with his last season with the Packers, 2 with the Jets, and then now with the Steelers. So that's a decent number of games. That's in the 30s of games, and only one of them's a 300-yard game. Not that he's a bad quarterback, but I think that his style of play plays into the Lions' defense. Because the Lions' weakness in their defense right now is that their 2 best safeties are out. He's not a guy that's going to threaten to throw the deep ball, so they can play those safeties up. So I think that they can actually kind of cheat those guys up, maybe the linebackers a little bit too, and just stack the box and dare them to run and say, Aaron, see if you can throw the ball more than 15 yards downfield.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, and we talked about, right, the Steelers have been playing that shorter game. They can go deep. They've got DK Metcalf. But as I pointed out in the interview with Jenna, I think that the Steelers have 7 different people on their roster with 20 receptions or more. So they're spreading the ball around, Coach, and they're using the tight ends a lot, the running backs, and wide receivers. And they just signed some veteran wide receivers to add to their squad. What are you expecting out of the Steelers in this game, Coach?
Well, my concern is, Rodgers, I watched him earlier in the year when he threw a 69-yard Hail Mary pass, so he still makes me nervous.
Yeah, fair enough. I think
But
anybody at Ford
that
Field
makes me
can
nervous.
feel that.
He does get out. He's smart. He's quick. He knows the pocket. He can manipulate people. He's the same thing. He's an older dude. He played well last week. We hope that he doesn't stack decent games. A couple things, again, going piggybacking on what James said, their biggest weakness is their running attack, even though Gainwell is really starting to step into it because he's getting some great stats on him with running the ball as well as catching the ball. He's turned into one of Rodgers' favorites. So we got to worry about that situation. But here's a pretty cool stat. The Steelers offense had 41.8% of drives end without a first down, the second highest rate in the NFL. almost 50, 41% where they end without a first down.
Meaning they just go 3 and out?
They go 3 and out, yes.
Wow.
And so that when I looked at that, I'm thinking that could be something for us with our offense, even if we do struggle a little bit defensively. If we can keep them at that rate, that's going to give us how many more possessions, which is going to give us how many more points. And so I think that one's pretty neat to look at. So do we want to get into 13 personnel?
Why not? Because I know you do.
All right. Well, I know James mentioned, I won't even talk about Darrell Washington, but that is the one big human being, James, as you noted. I did pick up his weight, James, off of St. Brown's podcast, and he was laughing when they said they had him listed at 264. I think that's what you had, James, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then
The
he looks
Steelers
more
website lists him at 264.
then he looks more 280. He came out and told that St. Brown he's 311 pounds.
Yeah. He's another guard.
He's
Not
another
even a tackle.
guard.
He's a guard.
And the dude, the good thing is, so that's at 13P. So 13 personnel, 16.6%, the most in the NFL. Okay. And you guys are like, I know.
So more than the Rams and the Lions. That was the whole storyline last week.
Yeah, more than the Rams. And then in 12P, they're at 29.4%. They're the second lowest rate in 11P, only behind the Ravens. Because the Ravens use that fullback concept. So that was something I looked at. So my point with that situation is, as high as they're running that, I'm so happy that we played the Rams, because we have the Rams 13P team. We got the Steelers who lead the league in 13P. And we have a team at the end of the year, not that I'm looking ahead, that likes to run 13P. So we got beat up a little bit in 13P, and especially in the fourth quarter, because of eye candy, which is when a guy goes across in motion. I used to call that eye candy. They're moving bodies around so that your eyes follow them. And their short motions with the tight end last week, and inserting him up on Campbell one-on-one turned some of those shorter runs into long runs. Campbell didn't see the block coming. And so Campbell had already mentioned that that's something that they will work out, whether it's an alignment concept, whether they shift with the motion concept. And so, again, we go back to what James, we were just talking about, that big guard, big guard, 311-pound guard, 6'7" or whatever he is. So we're going to have to put a hurt on him. We felt good last week with our base defense against the run, and it backfired a little bit on us. But I think once you have something on film and you've lived it, it's definitely going to help out the next week for us to be better off. So that should help us.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then in that Monday night game against the Dolphins, did you see where they lined Jonnu Smith at running back, and then put two tight ends on the right side, and then motioned another wide receiver over to block, and then ran right behind, and Jonnu walked in. He looked like a running back, and it just walked in for a touchdown.
Yeah, so they're gonna do some good stuff with us. But I feel pretty good about that. There's no doubt about it. So I just thought when you talked about their offense with that 41.8% of drives, if we can get keep them in that percentage, that's 12. 12. If they have the ball 12 times, that's 5 times we can get them on a 3 and out. I gotta believe we're gonna take advantage of that and put at least 2 touchdowns up on that.
All right, James, how about you? What are some things you're expecting from the Steelers in this game?
Well, I mean, they're going to try to run the ball a lot, I think. Like Coach said, Kenneth Gainwell's been running really well lately. They still have Jalen Warren. DK Metcalf, they picked him up in the offseason. You mentioned that. But he kind of really hasn't been the same receiver he was in Seattle for them. I don't know if it's just him and Aaron Rodgers not getting on the same page, or if he's lost a step, or what it is, but he just doesn't seem to be the same guy. And outside of him, they don't have a whole lot. Like you said, they kind of spread it around. They added veterans in Adam Thielen and Marquez Valdes-Scantling in the last couple of weeks. So obviously they're just looking to upgrade there. So it's interesting, I think, with the multiple tight end sets and with the running game working well and the short passing game to the running backs and tight ends. I think that they're going to stick with that. Against the Lions defense, I don't know how well that's going to work, because that kind of plays into the strength of the Lions defense.
Yeah. Well, and again, both teams come into this game 8-6. The Steelers are still trying to win their division, and they have a 1-game lead on that right now. And if you were to look at where they rank for the football power index, Pittsburgh comes in ranked at number 18. Okay. So even though they have same records, number 2 versus number 18.
Right.
And so that gives me a little bit more hope with what we've got out of the Lions. Another thing that gives me hope is that our episode is brought to you by Roaster Jack Coffee out of Traverse City. And I'm hoping you take advantage of the promo code, folks. Use the word Lions at roasterjack.com. You'll get 20% off your order. So, what do we expect out of the Lions in this matchup? This might turn into a side tangent, but I got to tell you, is maybe what we expect is what I want out of the Lions. I want David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs both on that football field. They both need to be on that football field. I don't care if it's a 2-back set. I don't care if you put Gibbs out as a wide receiver, because you need to have your best football players on the field. And when Sam Laporta and Brock Wright are no longer in the equation, and you have somebody else that's extremely talented, and there's the announcers are saying, how come it's only St. Brown and J-Mo getting catches? Throw the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs. And I will fully admit that I don't have the background to probably say a couple things I'm about to say, but I'm going to say them anyway, which is spread the ball out. Okay, 13 personnel sounds amazing to run the ball, but spread everybody out, right? Put them out there. You want to cover J-Mo, St. Brown, and Gibbs and put Monty in the backfield? Yeah, blitz 6 guys against Jared Goff and see what happens. Someone's going to get the ball. And it's I don't want these swing dump-off passes 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I want the ones where the running back goes out 2 or 3 yards and then catches the ball. Those are the ones that have been effective for the Lions. And David Montgomery, I know there's been some talk about him, and I just want to bring up something. His first 2 years with the Lions, he played 14 games each season. He has played 14 games this year. His first year with the Lions, he had 219 carries. Last year, 185 carries. This year, same number of games, 136 carries. Now, there's a lot that goes into that. The Lions aren't always getting as many snaps in a game as they have in the past. All right? That's a big one. But right now, you need David Montgomery on that field. But I'm not saying take Gibbs off the field. I'm saying move Gibbs into another spot. I mean, why did we lose to Green Bay? I think the biggest reason we lost to Green Bay is St. Brown got hurt in the first quarter. Okay? That changed everything we could do on offense. But you've got to get them both on the field at the same time. I mean, Coach, I know there's more to it than that, but you've got your best playmakers on the field. You have 3 weeks left in this season. You need to empty the gas tank.
Oh, and I think they will. I mean, and I agree. I think that's one of the things that Dan Campbell talked about today was, he's got to, dial up some things that are designed for Monty, and when Monty gets in, he's going to do this. Monty hasn't had many catches either. And that's the other thing too. He's pretty good. He's a pretty good receiver.
Very good. Remember that tackle he broke last year after you thought he was down for 5 yards and he went like 35?
Yeah. So you got that. And then your 3 and outs in the third quarter dictate a lot of things. Now you're into a panic mode. I shouldn't say panic mode, but you're into, oh my God, we just let them take the lead mode. We better go. Yeah, we better go with our guy that can take it to the house at any time. Where I think Monty's capable of doing that also. So and I think DC's gonna made a concerted effort to get him the ball this week. He normally does that. And there were times when I coached too that I was like, oh my God, freaking so-and-so didn't touch the ball at all, or he touched it twice. What am I doing? And once you get into the flow of the game like that, sometimes you miss it. And then of course, when things don't go as planned, if you don't get through your script in the first series, excuse me, or your first 15 or whatever like that, you have to come back to those because you have to use those later in the game. So there's a lot that goes into that. So,
but Coach, what about mid-season? Some of your main contributors get hurt. How can you shift enough of your offensive scheme to, hey, this other guy who was maybe our number 2 running back or our 1B. We're going to get him on the field more, and we're going to move this guy who's an offensive weapon from draft day. And, have you ever had to do things like that where you scheme it differently so you can get as many of the talented guys on the field so that they're all getting the reps so that it increases I would think it maximizes your chance of winning.
Yeah, you can do it. You also go in with a game plan. Here's the thing is too, when you lose, we're a 12P team, right? Or
Right.
we bring
Yep.
the extra lineman team in. Well, now
Yeah.
that's all been taken away from us. We got guys that we're trying to get to fill in. So, to say this is what we're going to do, we can't go to 12P, so we got to kind of twist things around. So then all of a sudden you're saying, okay, we don't have any tight ends, but these guys are going to be okay. How can we get Gibbs on the edge? How can we get Monty involved? And, do we sacrifice, I shouldn't say sacrifice, putting Gibbs out as a wide out or as a slot, when we still have 2 receivers that tore it up last week, and we ran a bubble screen, a bubble screen to Saint for a touchdown. So, there's a lot. And I know that, they're trying to figure that out, and that's kind of the other thing when we talk about the record, we're trying to figure things out, and anyways, there's like James comment on that too, but there's some things that what you were just talking about that I'll show on Steelers defense that I think what you're saying will attack what they do.
All right. And the weirdest thing is, this is David Montgomery's best yards per carry average in his entire career.
Right.
Okay. And his first year at Detroit was his second best.
Mhm.
And so I always thought Chicago used him wrong. I know they didn't have a Jahmyr Gibbs. I know we have Jahmyr Gibbs, and he is a one-of-one type guy. I just want to see them both out there because I think anytime Monty's on the field, we're better. I'm not saying take Jahmyr off the field. That doesn't make us better.
No.
But you put both of them out there. They teased it all training camp.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're right, Coach. 12P team. But if you don't have the 2 tight ends to run it, you have to make some adjustments, it seems. So, James, you've been patiently waiting. What are you expecting out of the Lions here, man?
I don't know. I mean, like you said, if you want to get the 12 best on the field, you could do a weird 12P, and you could put Skipper out there, and then you could put Montgomery at tight end. They'll average out to be 2 tight ends, right? Weight wise, between the 2 of them. Smallest tight end in the league, David Montgomery.
Yeah.
He knows how to block. I mean,
Yeah.
but no, I would love to see that as well. Split one of them out wide, and you can split either one of them out wide because they're both good receivers. They're both threats there. So yeah, I agree that they need to get those guys on the field because you don't have that tight end threat really anymore. None of the guys on the roster that they have right now are big threats. I mean, Horton, Zylstra, those guys, they're in there mostly to block. Zylstra can catch some passes here, but he's still not a game breaker or anything. Not like, Wright could do when he torched the Jets or Laporta did it on a lot of times. But I think they need to get a little creative with some of those things. And I think the players would appreciate that too. That was one thing that Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson did. They got creative. They got the players involved. They did weird, funky stuff that the players love doing. And I think maybe they need to get back to that a little bit.
All right. Yeah, I'm expecting the Lions to bounce back in this one, right? They've done it. This is a great opportunity to do it. And in fact, they need to do it or the season is effectively over. Then you get into those real small percentages that we don't even want to talk about because you need a magnifying glass to even read them. Coach, any other storylines, anything unexpected before we get to the ref report and talk about what it's going to take for teams to win?
Well, a couple things for their Steelers defense. Okay, of course, their greatest strength is their rush, pass rush. They have 40 sacks. Okay, so that's one of the things that, are we going to bring that extra lineman? Now we're going to use 2 backs and we're going to try to spread them out. There's household names if everybody's injured. Guys, Herberg, Watt, Harmon, Hayward, Ramsey. Those are some dogs right there. If you go around any NFL fan, they know who all those guys are. Ramsey's been playing well. So if these injuries hold up, the outside run is going to be great for us. Okay, because that's where we're going to get Gibbs out, and we should, Hayward's still a beast in the middle, but then we can still get those inside runs with Gibbs and Monty. One of the things that people that I found it, Queen. I didn't mention him yet because when you say Patrick Queen, you're going, oh my God. Patrick Queen leads the league in missed tackles.
Oh,
Leads the league in missed tackles. Can you let me say that one more time? Leads the league in missed tackles. So there's that interior run game with our two guys. Monty can put 1 foot in the dirt and go. Gibbs can put 18 feet in the dirt and go before he goes. So that's going to be something I think is going to hold up. They held the Dolphins to under 100 yards rushing.
they did, yeah.
And the Dolphins have been tearing it up on the run game. So they set their mind to stopping that. Again, we'll leave that alone. Their Dolphins run game isn't our run game when we're on.
Right.
But before that, they gave up back-to-back 200-yard run games against the Ravens and the Bills. Okay. And again, Ravens have a pretty good running back. Bills have a pretty good running back. We have 2 really good running backs. And so I think those are things, the numbers, the DVOA, the all thing is us. We have, 7 or 8 5-stars compared to theirs on our offense to their defense in the rankings. So I think those are some things that we're going to see. Slow the pass rush down a little bit and see if we can play games with it.
Yeah, I really like the Steelers defense for one reason and one reason only, and that's because in fantasy football last week, my opponent needed them to get 7 points and they got 6.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I mean, as Jenna and I talked about, coming into the season, we heard how impressive this Steelers defense was going to be.
Right.
And it has been incredibly inconsistent, right? It has not lived up to anywhere near those expectations. So there are going to be opportunities for the Lions offense to do things. The Lions defense has to not allow those explosions and keep the run game in check. And so, speaking of check, let's check on the ref report. James?
All right, nice segue. Your segues have been on point today.
Oh, thanks. You're very complimentary tonight.
This week they got Carl Cheffers. They've had him once this season already when they played the Bengals. They had him last year for the Titans. In that game, the Lions only had 3 penalties and Tennessee had 8. They do call a lot of penalties. They call false start and offensive holding a lot more than others. 44 false starts and 40 holding calls already this season. And then their penalty calls drops off to defensive pass interference at 17 and defensive holding at 14. So they called the 4th most penalties in the league at 202 already this season.
Wow.
But they tend to side with the home team. They've called 16 more on the visiting team than the away team, or than the home team this season. What's interesting about them is the weird difference from year to year in there. Last year they called the 2nd least penalties in the league at 186, 3rd least in 2023 at 157. But they led the league in penalties in 2022 and in 2021, and were 2nd in 2020. So 3 years they were calling penalties everywhere. 2 years they suddenly decided not to, and then this year they're right back to calling penalties as much as anybody in the league.
All right. Well, that sounds like some inconsistencies.
And what do you want out of your referees, Jerry?
The opposite.
If you're going to be bad, be consistent bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now let's say, what's it going to take for the Detroit Lions to win? Well, I think the offensive line has to do its job. They've got to be on the same page, whether it's run blocking or pass blocking. They seem to have done a better job pass blocking last week than run blocking. But I'm going to say Jared Goff has to be Jared Goff. And I don't want to put too much pressure on this guy. I actually want to heap some praise on him. Who's number 3 in the NFL in passing yards? Jared Goff. Who's number 2 in rating? Jared Goff. Who's number 2 in touchdown passes? Jared Goff. Okay. Who's number 8 in Pro Bowl voting? Jared Goff. I'm like, okay, sure. Put Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence above him. Jared Goff is having a phenomenal season, you guys, even with the issues that have gone on with the offensive line, losing his top 2 tight ends so they can't run the personnel they want. And we don't know who's going to be in at left guard. That's going to be vital, I think, is whoever gets in at left guard plays well. James, what do you got for keys for the Lions to win?
Yeah, well, hopefully, I mean, based on the injury report, maybe it's Awashika coming back at left guard, and if not, maybe they give Miles Frazier a little bit more run because Tristan Colon did not look good last week. Um, but I think the Lions have to start fast. They need to get a lead and not let Carl Cheffers throw a lot of flags to take that lead away. The weirdest statistic that I found about the Pittsburgh Steelers is that Mike Tomlin has gone 64 straight games with scoring 7 or fewer points in the first quarter.
Wow.
You would think that over 64 points you would just stumble into the end zone twice.
Right.
Over 64 games, you would score at least twice, one time in the first quarter.
Yeah, 64 in a row where they've scored 7 or less in the first quarter. So the Lions need to get to a lead, make them play from behind. They want to run the ball, make them play from behind.
All right. Coach, what are your keys to the Lions being successful?
Gibbs has to score. Monty has to score. Okay. We have to score early and often, like you just said. And I think that the other one is Zylstra has to have a couple receptions. I think that'll loosen some things up on that. But I just think they're and then J-Mo and Sane are going to do what they do. But I think the Zylstra thing, I think they saw that on film, that missed wide open route they could have hit him on. I think they're going to emphasize getting to that, and they're going to do the two-headed monster in the backfield. So I think that's the one we have to do. And again, we can say it again. It's a broken record. You got to win the turnover battle. We won it last week, 1-0, but we have to have 2. And I said that last week. We needed 2 last week, and it would have been we would have won that football game. So.
Yeah, and I like the Zylstra incorporation there because that was his first week back. Now you've got stuff on film and you can build your offense more. And he was the number 3 tight end for a while before he got hurt. And so he's been around. Could be a difference maker. James, I want to go back to something you said earlier, which is Aaron Rodgers doesn't hardly throw for 300 yards anymore. Jared Goff has thrown for 300 yards 4 times this year, including each of the last 2 games. So I just want to put that up there.
Yep.
So. All right, prediction time. James, what do you got for predictions?
This one's probably not very likely, but I'm going to say Kirby suits up and owns Aaron Rodgers again.
I like it.
All right. Well, hey, anything's possible. Coach, you have a prediction?
Just that we're going to score on our first drive, and we're going to have minimal 3 and outs for the whole game. Under 2, which would be 1.
Okay. I want to predict that Aiden Hutchinson's going to get an interception, just like he did against Aaron Rodgers when I was at the game 3 years ago. But Hutchinson did it last week. So I don't know if he can do it 2 weeks in a row, guys. That might be asking a little much. So here's my prediction. Blue and silver uniforms. It's the last chance. It's the last chance this season. Look at the bobbleheads. They're all wearing blue and silver, guys. That's not a coincidence. Okay? It's the Hail Mary right here. It's the last chance because it's their last regular season home game of the season. So, okay. Final thoughts. I've got a few final thoughts. Coach, I want to give you the floor first. Any final thoughts on the Pittsburgh matchup, on the season as it is, on the playoff race? What do you got?
I just think, we're going to come out and do what we do. We're going to start fast. I mean, that's the prediction. We're going to start fast, and we're going to keep our foot on the gas.
All right, James, how about you? Any final thoughts in this?
I think I've already had too many thoughts.
All right, it's time to go play.
Yep.
All right. Well, my final thought is this is it, you guys. There is no more margin for error, right? Kind of like the Bears game 2 years ago, November 19, 2023. The Lions had a 98.8% chance that they were going to lose that game with 3 minutes and 59 seconds left. There was literally 1.2% chance of them winning, trailing 26-14. They came back and won 31-26. Okay. Now it's not the same team. You have a number of the same players. You have a number of the same coaches. Not saying it's going to happen, but I am going to say I would not count this team out. They brought the right players in the building. They can make up for some of these flaws. If they can, then something can happen. Now, will they? I don't know. We're going to find out. And I'm excited to be going along for this ride. All right, guys. Big shout out to Roaster Jack Coffee Company. Roasted incredible beans since 99. Visit roasterjack.com. Use the code LIONS. Take 20% off your next order. Coach James, thank you guys for all your insights. Folks, we don't know exactly when we're releasing next one. It's probably Monday sometime. We will be at the game. And it's going to be late by the time we get back. So we stay tuned, but probably Monday sometime. So thank you for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. You can catch our work on social media, all major streaming platforms, Traverse City Record Eagle, as well as NotTheSameOldLions.com. Until next time, stay gritty, my friends.